Okay, welcome to webinar number 4 of the AASHTO Pavement ME Design series for this current fiscal year. Our topic today is the PMED web application, and this will be part 1, an introduction. I'm Clark Morrison of the North Carolina Department of Transportation and chair of the AASHTO Pavement ME Design Task Force. Hari Nair is the vice chair of the task force. Our presenter today will be Chad Becker with ARA, and be aware this presentation will be available for viewing after the completion at the ME Design Resource website that you see on your screen now. Next slide. Here we go. The Pavement ME Design Task Force consists of Ryan Fragapane, who is our AASHTO project manager, myself, and Hari. Other members are Patrick Birrell with Ohio DOT, Kumar Dave with Indiana DOT, Felix Doucette with the Quebec Ministry of Transportation, Dulce Feldman with California DOT, and Ian Risch with Georgia DOT. Suzanne Chan with Ontario MOT is our liaison to the Transportation Association of Canada, and Tom Yu is our liaison to the Federal Highway Administration. A few housekeeping issues. All of phones and audio are being muted. Please post your questions in the Q&A box. This can be accessed by clicking on the WebEx Q&A button. The presenters will answer all questions at the end of the webinar as time permits. Questions not answered because of time will be responded to separately.
Okay, thanks, Clark.
And with that, I will turn it over to Chad.
Thanks, Clark. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. So yeah, just to review a couple of the housekeeping items. If you're having issues with the webinar, send us a message in the chat. We've got a couple people standing by to try and help you out. We also, if you do have questions, please use that Q&A button. That's a good format for us. It lets us respond individually to those questions. And we'll have some panelists standing by. They're ready to answer questions, and we'll try to answer questions in that Q&A box as we go through the presentation, and then we'll review them at the end to make sure everybody is aware. To see the presentation full screen, you can click on that little drop-down tab in the WebEx controls, and then go to View, and then click in Fit in Viewer. Okay, with that, we'll get started with the sort of the typical poll questions for poll 1 here. I'm going to open this up. And please just answer those 2 questions. I'm going to give us a minute to go through this. All right, about 10 seconds left here. All right, we'll go ahead and close that poll. Thank you very much. It's going to take 17 seconds to close the poll. So while that's going, we'll go ahead and move forward. So there are no prerequisites for this webinar. We're going to be going over basically an introduction to the web application. Really excited to show you all the work that we've put into this over the past almost 4 years now. We're going to be doing a series on the PMED web application, a series of webinars. And each part in the series is going to focus on specific aspects of the service. So currently we're planning for 2 webinars. Additional material will be added later in future webinars or in smaller shorter web-based sessions that we're looking to maybe post on YouTube. So part 1 is going to be the introduction, and part 2 we're going to focus on some of the aspects related to tenants, libraries, and workspaces. And we're going to do that one hopefully right away in the first quarter of FY23. So after you have gone through the webinar today, the goals here is for folks to understand the registration process, how to sign up for the system, how to sign into the system. We want people to be able to feel comfortable creating, uploading, and editing new and existing designs, saving those designs, downloading designs, and a lot of folks have asked about the climate data, so I'm going to go over that in detail, including some things we're adding here at the last minute. And then how to run a design and accessing the design outputs in the web application. And then briefly, we're going to have a short section on tenants, libraries, and workspaces. So first, we're going to take a look at the registration and sign-in process, and that's changed a bit for the web application. We'll also describe what your subscription access grants you in the new system and how that access is going to work for your agency. And so the way I'm going to do the webinar, at times I'm going to break away from the slide deck, and I'm going to go into the actual application that I've got open behind it here, and step through some of the things that we saw in the slides kind of live, and that way hopefully you get a better idea of how the application works. Okay, so the production site, that's going to be live July 1st at https://pavementmedesign.com. And one of our core goals with the release of PMed version 3 was really to bring more focus to the use of the software in practice at the various agencies, and to work with our users to adapt the application to make their current workflows and processes easier to apply in the application. And with the release of the web application, the dev team will be able to push non-analysis altering changes every 2 weeks to the PMed multi-tenant server. So that's going to make those changes and bug fixes immediately accessible to all users that are using the multi-tenant web app. And that's going to allow us to respond quickly to user-desired changes in the system. So over the next hour and a half, we hope to demonstrate how we're achieving those goals through new and enhanced user-centric features in the system. We do encourage feedback from our users, and we do carefully examine feature requests as well as fixing issues found in the application. And please feel free to contact us with your requests anytime at pavementmedesign@ara.com. So the first thing we're going to look at is the PMed subscription services. So it's important to know and sort of what this means. The desktop application is going to be sunset over a period of 5 years starting this July. And the PMed web services are located on our ASHO-hosted multi-tenant web server at the site that we gave you in the previous slide. And the system is going to allow us to deploy single-tenant and on-premise deployments. Those are available. They're a little bit of extra work, and so any agencies that need to do single-tenant or on-premise, just contact us and we can work with your agency to get that set up. And in the next webinar, we're going to talk more about the single and on-premise deployments in greater detail. Okay, so purchasing a subscription, sometimes called a license in FY23, is going to give your agency access to the web application with a number of concurrent subscriber seats equal to your purchased amount. So your agency will receive a corresponding number of desktop license seats in addition to that. So you get access to both the web service and to any previous version of the desktop application, including the desktop application update that we're going to release, version 2.6.2. The reason that we're doing this is ASHO recognizes that state agencies are working with local calibrations, and those are locally calibrated to specific versions of the software, and it's going to take some time to move to the new calibration that's available in version 3, and so we want folks to be able to transition from previous calibrations, previous versions of the desktop application to the subscription service. So just a couple notes about version 3 and version 2.6.2. In both versions, the APAD's runtime has been improved by 4x, so that's 4 times faster than it was running previously, and we're going to see a little bit of that today. NCHRP 151, the slab interface friction module, has been integrated into version 3, and version 3 also includes the rigid recalibration for the MERA climatic data set and the NCHRP 151 models. Version 2.6.2 does not include those changes. Okay, so once we've received your purchase information through AASHTO or the International Purchasing System, ARRAY is going to enter your agency information to our customer licensing and customer subscription system. This system is going to send out a confirmation email to the end user designee at the purchasing agency, notifying them that they've successfully purchased the software and that we've entered that into the system. And that just looks like this. So it just says, you know, dear customer, we've processed your registration. You don't have to take any further action at this time. And you're going to receive a separate email for the desktop license information. And that's going to be exactly the same as it's been in previous years. So that renewal information will come separate from the subscription service. And shortly after receiving your purchase email, because we sort of set this all up at the same time, your agency is going to receive a root administrator email. And typically the root administrator for your agency, that should be someone who will be managing which users have access to the various components of the service. So by default, the root administrator will be assumed as the end user designee that's on the AASHTO purchasing form. And by following the link that's in this email, you're preparing to register your account in the multi-tenant system. You're going to need your customer ID, which is given here, tenant ID, and registration token to complete the root admin registration process. And by default, the root administrator is going to have all privileges available to them in the system, and the system is going to guarantee that there's always at least one root admin for your agency. So once you click that link, you're going to be taken to the sign-up page for the root administrator. This is a little bit different than when you're just adding a regular user to the system because you're going to have a registration token. So you're going to enter your email and name, customer and tenant ID, and your registration token, and then you'll click the reCAPTCHA button, make sure you're not a robot, and then click sign up, and you'll be redirected back to the main sign-in page. So we've already set you up in our licensing and subscription service database at this point, and once you provide this information, this sort of confirms everything on our end. You'll get a confirmation email to your email address. You just click that link, and then at that point you're ready to head over to the sign-in page and sign into the system and begin using it. And so that's what we see here. And so you'll just enter your email and password that you set up just prior to this. And once you hit sign in, it's going to take you straight into the application. So at this point, you should be able to see the designs component, and you should be able to start working within the web application. So at this point, I'm going to go through the designs, editing a design, creating a design, those various aspects of the system. And then I'm going to step out of the presentation. We're going to go through some of those processes in the actual app. Okay, so creating a new design, you'll click the Create New Design button. It'll pop up the Create New Design dialog. You'll fill out some of the information there and just click Create. And then to view created design, it'll just show up in the designs list below, and we'll go through some of the features of that here in just a minute on the demo. But I wanted to go through a couple of key points on design data. So designs are ephemeral or session-based only. And that means that the design is not stored on our server in a database. It's not stored permanently. So users will need to save designs that they create or that they modify to their agency network drive or to their local machine. And you can do this using the save features that we've integrated into the app, and I'll show a little bit of that here in the demo. But I want to stress the point that the multi-tenant server is not saving your design changes outside of your current section. So if you refresh the page or you close the browser, the changes are going to be lost. We do keep your design run results around on the multi-tenant server for 5 days, and after that period, the results are going to be automatically removed. So make sure that you download your results as well, and I'll step through that process. Now, libraries and template data, those are saved on the server, and those are always available to be applied to your designs. And in future releases, we're going to be introducing sharing capabilities for that data and further integrations with that data. So we're going to touch a bit on libraries in this webinar, and then we'll go into more detail on library management in the first webinar in FY23. Okay, so back to the designs. Now that we can create a design, we're going to look at some of the icons and actions that we can perform on the design. So there's a save icon here that lets you save the design, and this is actually, if it's the first time that you're creating the design, it's actually a save as operation that will ask you, where you would like to save the design on your computer. And if it's the first time that you're saving a design, you might be prompted for the location to save to, and then you might get a little pop-up dialog that says, hey, this website wants to save something to your computer. Are you okay with that? You just click yes on that. That's just browser security, making sure that the website isn't acting maliciously. The second button here lets you copy a design verbatim. If you click the copy button, you're going to have an exact copy replica of the design, including the name. And then clicking on the trash can icon is going to delete your design. To edit the design, you'll click on the little edit pin here. So we'll go over that here in the demo shortly. If you click anywhere in the yellow header area, that's going to expand the design, showing its name and description. And clicking on the edit pin next to the design, that's going to allow the user to edit the design and take the user into the editor component. So let me jump out of the webinar presentation and bring up what we have here. So make sure my connection's still good. Yep. So we'll just create a new design. We'll call it Webinar Test 2 for the webinar. And one of the new aspects of the web application is you actually select your unit system for this particular design, either US or SI. And then use template has to do with libraries. We're going to talk about that later, but you can select basically a pre-configured design that has all the data set up in it and load all of that data into this new design from the template. So from here, we're going to hit Create. And you can see that created my Webinar Test 2 design. And right away, we have some validation errors, so we're going to take a look at those. I'm going to drop this down, and you can see that we haven't saved it yet. So the file name is NA, and the name is Webinar Test 2, and here's the description that we put in. So we'll go through these different buttons. So I'm going to go ahead and save the file. And you can see this has popped up a dialog that says, hey, where would you like to save this DGPX file? And so we'll just save it on my desktop. And now you can see that this icon has changed to the save functionality. So any changes that I make are going to overwrite the changes, they're going to overwrite the DGPX file that's kept on my desktop. We'll click on the copy button. So that just made a verbatim copy. And we'll click on the delete button to remove the copy. Okay, so next is the Heidi, sorry, I just got a beep in my headset. I wanted to make sure you guys can still hear me okay.
Yes, I can.
Okay. If I cut out, just let me know in the chat. I'll keep an eye on it. The edit button here is going to take us to the design editor components. Let me hop back to the presentation and we'll go through those. We'll go through those various slides. So the design editor component looks like this. You can see it's got all of the sort of normal information, the general information, traffic, climate, structure. Some things are missing in the action menu. This is the action menu here on the left. Those things are specific to what we call the design strategy, or the selection of design type and pavement type together. And so we'll see those action menu items appear here in the list once we've selected the design type and a pavement type. So here we can just review and set the PMET analysis inputs, any metadata for the design. The design editor in general is comprised of two parts, the action menu that I just mentioned, and then the properties for the current action menu item that you have selected. Note that the design strategy specific action menu items, I just mentioned this, a design strategy is just the combination of those two properties. Errors and warnings are going to appear in the action menu as small icons. So you can see here we've got climate and structure. It's saying, hey, this needs some attention. And then there's also, down at the bottom, you can't see it in the screenshot, we'll take a look here in just a second, called the error warning and information component. And that's going to allow you to, that's basically a running tally of all the errors in the current design. And that's going, when you click on navigate to error, it'll take you straight to where the error is occurring. So let me jump through some of these screens here. Actually, we're gonna talk about climate and structure first, and then we'll go through the demo. Okay, so the climate component is going to give us access to a Google Map control, and from there we can select our design location as a single point on the map. And once a design location is selected, the app's going to automatically pull the nearest 9 MERA data points from the InfoPave web API. Selecting one or more of those points and clicking the Retrieve Climate Data button is going to pull the HCD data in automatically from the InfoPave web API endpoint, and it's going to do that through the new AASHTOWare data integration framework. We're currently looking at potentially expanding the data integrations that we have through other AASHTO products, as well as third-party agency products. We're also starting to look into potentially utilizing the new info materials section on the InfoPave website to get material data into the system. So there's a lot of opportunities for web service integrations to hopefully make the design setup process easier for everybody. If in the event that the data retrieval is not functioning, users can always upload climate data. And we're currently altering this functionality, but basically we're making it so that you'll be able to provide or download a station.dat file, and then any HCD files that are in the folder with that station.dat file, the system will recognize those HCD files, and it will show those on the map and allow you to select the data from those custom HCD files. So what I'm going to demo today is the single point upload climate data functionality, and just be aware that that's going to be changing a little bit to be a little more flexible with some of the agency needs that have come up during our review meetings. Prior to our release, oh yeah, I just mentioned this. Okay, so I think that's it for climate. So just clicking through some of the other components in the system, performance criteria, traffic, we've integrated some new charts that we're going to take a look at here. But you're going to have access to all the other design components that were provided by the legacy desktop application, and you're going to be able to navigate through them and make changes, according to the design decisions and procedures at your agency. These are going to include your performance criteria, your traffic, maintenance strategy, calibration factors for the design properties, sensitivity and thickness optimizations as well. And at the very bottom of the action menu in the design editor, right here it shows us go to validation error because there's a validation error. But this little button here is going to allow you to actually run the design from the editor, so you don't have to navigate back to the designs page. And in the next webinar, we're going to devote a section of that webinar to showing how agencies can set up your own custom user interface. And that's going to allow agencies to control the visibility, read-only nature, and order of all the properties in the system. So if you're providing this to folks, or if you have a certain workflow, you'll be able to set up that workflow inside of a workspace, and you won't ever have to see the other variables, which will remain the default values, which you can also set as a library. Okay, so we're going to pause there and go through some of these different user interface components. So we'll go to our editor, and you can see here's the general information page, and just some of the features here. If there's an invalid entry, we have the validation set up so that it picks up. It's going to tell you what's wrong. It's going to say you can't do that. So we'll just put down a one-year design here, and we'll just do a new flexible. And you can see that's changed our action menu items. So now we have performance criteria that are specific to the new flexible design strategy. The calibration factors are that are associated with new flexible pavements are now available. The design properties for new flexible pavements are now available. So we just take a quick look at those. And there's the performance criteria. And then we're going to come down and just take a brief look at traffic. And we just want to show one of the new charts that we introduced. So previously, this was a huge grid of all of the axle load distribution data, and it was frankly kind of hard to look at. So we changed this so you can actually come in and select the different months and select the different vehicle class types to see what that looks like throughout the year for your agency. So that's just what this chart here is showing. And then we still have the grid, so if you do want to see all of the data exactly, you can do that. You can validate the information. And then every component, design editor component in the system has a custom context menu down here at the bottom, and that's shown with this little ellipsis. And this is going to let you do the sort of the normal interactions that you see on in the desktop application, like importing the traffic data from XML, exporting the data that you have, importing the LTVP defaults, and so on. Okay, so now we're going to jump to the Climate tab. And I'm just going to zoom into trusty Champaign, Illinois here. And right now the retrieve climate data functionality is not completed yet. We're going to complete it, should be completed this week. So I'm not going to show that just yet. But I'll go ahead and select this data point here. Click on it. There we go. And then I'm going to upload climate data. And I've just previously downloaded an HCD file from the InfoPave site. And so that's imported my climate data and used a lat long of that selected point and the elevation information. So we can see the other climate information gets loaded in here into the various pages. We also changed the hourly climate data tab. I don't know that our feeling from the technical review team and beta testing was that the hourly climatic data page wasn't really used very much. Nevertheless, we went through and just shaped it up so that you could actually look at specific days in the climate file. Because looking at first of all, loading all that data all at once takes a long time, even in the desktop application, and it's just impossible to look at it all at once. So we wanted to break that out a bit. Moving on to structure. So some nice things about structure. The input data for structure is going to be here on the left, and the actual structure of pavement is going to be shown here on the right. And you can come in and click the Edit button, and that's going to take you to the structure layer editor. And this is all drag and drop now. So you just select your material layers, and you just drag it into the spot that you want it. You can also search at the top, and as you have custom material data that you load in as libraries, those will also show up here. And so you'll be able to just search for that material data here. So if we want like an A7 subgrade, you can see that shows up under subgrade here, and that just filters this set. Okay, so we're done editing there. And now we can see we don't have any errors. I'm going to manually regenerate an error here just to show the EWI component. And we're going to just hop over to the structure page again. So you can see I've created an error in the general information page. It's got the, excuse me, it's got the red stoplight here saying, hey, there's a problem here. We look at the EWI component, and it's going to show you what design has the error, which component it's in, what group it's in, the exact property that the error occurs in. And when you click on it, which I just did, it's going to take you to the General Information tab, and then you can see exactly where the error is. So let me go back to, one more thing to point out on this page that we mentioned. Now that all the errors have been resolved, we can actually start running the analysis from here. So I'm going to go back to the design, and to do that, you just click this button, and this button will dynamically update, which I'll demonstrate when we get to running the design. Excuse me. Okay, so the design's all ready to go. We've already saved it to the desktop. I just glanced at the chat. I noticed somebody deplored saving it to the desktop, and I just want to add I 100% agree with that with that statement. I highly recommend that you save your designs to network storage and make sure that the designs are not saved locally on your machine, because there's one thing that we're certain of, it's that hardware will fail. And when it does, any data that's not backed up is going to fail along with it. So yeah, please make sure that your designs are saved to network drives or to some sort of cloud storage media. Okay, so we're going to save the changes. You just click the Save button. So that's updated our design in the place that we've saved it. There's no need to re-navigate or anything like that. And with that, we'll head back to the presentation. I think we're all caught up. Oh, yeah, saving a design. So we went through a couple of these already. I won't belabor the point here, just quick review. So this is saving the design, and uploading a design is next. So we're going to talk, I'll head back to the demo here in just a second, but uploading a design, you just click the Upload Design button, and you select the design from wherever you have it saved, and the app's going to upload the DGPX file into the system. So we talked about the Run Analysis button. We're going to take a look at that in just a minute by clicking on it there. Again, I want to reiterate that the designs are ephemeral, and so you can think of the Pavement IMI Design web service as just that. It's a service that you go to. You might manipulate your analysis inputs for your design runs, then run the designs, saving any changes that you've made, and then downloading the results, and then you're done using the service. The only aspect of the service that doesn't adhere to that concept is libraries, which really we're going to dive into in the next webinar. We'll touch on here toward the end of this webinar. So now that we've saved the design, we're ready to run it. You can run any design from the designs component itself or from the design editor. And once the design's running, you're going to see it in the Running Designs tab. And then clicking on the yellow area in the running design will show the progress of the analysis. And that's going to look similar to what you see on the right-hand side in the desktop application. I mentioned this previously, but I want to mention it again. We're pretty excited. APADS now runs 4 times faster than the previous versions. It really decreases the amount of time it takes to run flexible designs. We're going to see that. And you're going to see this improvement in both the 2.6.2 release and in version 3. So once a design is finished running, it's going to appear in the Completed Designs tab in the Designs component. And you'll be able to download all your results from here. So it's going to show the name of the design, when it finished running. You've got a zip file. The zip file is going to have everything. It's got all your intermediate file data. It's got the DGPX file. It's got the reports. And if you just want to see the output reports, you can also download the DOCX or XLSX files. And we realize that folks may want to work with PDFs for formal reporting of the information that's coming out of the analysis. And that's really easy to do. You just save the DOCX file as a PDF. And then, of course, you have your cleanup button here, your delete button, and that's going to delete the results of this particular run. Okay, so the multi-tenant server currently allows for up to 5 designs to run at a time. If a tenant queues up a design and the server is under load, the server is going to place the design into the fair queue. The queue works such that no blocking of analyses can occur. And this means that the server is always going to process the next tenant analysis in the queue, regardless of its timestamp. And if and only if there are no other tenants in the analysis queue, will your tenant again be selected for the next run. So what that means is if tenant A queues up 150 analyses at 7:15 p.m., immediately the first, I've got 4 here, that should be 5. The first 5 analyses will begin running, and the remaining analyses will go into the queue. If tenant B then immediately queues up an analysis right after that, they get threaded into the queue. So the next analysis that will run is going to be that analysis from tenant B, even though tenant A queued up those 150 designs prior to tenant B. And the reason we did that is we don't want people blocking the analysis queue with, hundreds of design runs. That shouldn't happen, and it should be the case that our users, have a reasonable expectation for when their design gets completed. And depending on server load, over time, we'll look at scaling the server to a more powerful machine so that it can run more analyses at a time. Okay, so we're going to take a pause there and go through running a design. Okay, so first I'm going to upload a design. So I've prepared this webinar test design here, and that's, as you can see, I can just browse to that wherever on a network drive. If that's where it's saved, works just as well. And that's uploaded webinar test. Now the upload isn't always this snappy. It can take up to 15 seconds to upload a full design with climate and traffic data. Excuse me just 1 second. Sorry about that. So once the design's been uploaded, we can now go ahead and run it. And again, there's the 2 ways to do that. You can run it from here, or you can run it from the designs component. We'll just go ahead and run it from the designs component. And you can see that the design has gone from ready to running. And we'll look in the actual running design. It's already 22% complete. This is just a 1-year design, so it's going to go very quickly. And watch how fast APADS finishes this 1-year design. Done. So much faster than before. And I think running the 25-year analyses, and Voter can jump in and help me if I get my number wrong here, but we've really decreased the run time for those analyses for flexible pavements. So I'm pretty happy about that. So these are going to show your results in order of date. So the most recently completed are going to be at the top. So there's our webinar test. And I've actually already downloaded the files, so just take a look at those real quick. Here's the patch. Oh, I guess I haven't already downloaded the files. No problem, we'll download them right now. So we'll grab the zip file, save that. It is right there, that's okay, we'll just replace it. And we'll grab the docx file, save that, and the xlsx file, save that. So just looking at the webinar test.zip here, open that up. And jump in there. And we can see we've got all of the intermediate file data that we're all used to seeing in the legacy application. The docx file is there, the xlsx file is there. So the zip file is really just everything. It also has the dgpx file just outside of the main folder. And real quick, we can take a look at the new reports. And these reports have been completely refactored. We did away with our third-party Telerik software. We're now using OpenXML. It's an open standard, and it gives us a lot more flexibility and capability to work more granularly with the reports. And as we can see, everything should look identical. So our objective was not to really change anything, with the exception of a couple graphs that we thought would be clear So we have like a heat map for hourly air temperature distribution before. This was like thousands of little columns that were difficult to read. And we thought that the heat map for temperature was appropriate. So we put that in there. But otherwise, everything should just remain exactly the same as we have seen in previous versions of the desktop application. Okay, so that's the docx file. Again, the xlsx file. Oops, hold on, that popped open on my other screen here. Bring that over. Again, should look identical to the previous version of the application. Some small formatting changes, these kinds of things, but all of the data that previously existed in the desktop application should be here. Okay, so that is running a design. So let's take a minute and talk about some of the different, analysis modes. So we also have batch mode, which existed in the desktop application. To work with batch mode, you just click Create Batch, and then from the list of potential DGPX files that you've loaded into the session, you can create a batch run. And so all you do is you just click on Add Designs, you select the design that you want, set of designs that you want, and those are added to the batch. And then from the batch screen, you click Run, and then in the Designs component, it's actually going to begin running the design. And that looks like this. So we'll take a look at this in just a minute. And rather than the detailed information for each DGPX file, it just shows how far along each each design is in the analysis run and the overall percent complete. Oh, I forgot to mention, you can cancel a design run by hitting the stop button. Once you hit the stop button, it'll take a second, and then it'll flip back to the play button. That's going to cancel the analysis and then do some cleanup work, and then that design should be ready to be run again. The batch outputs come in two folders, come in the number of folders equal to the number of designs that you run, along with the DGPX files. And those should just look very similar to the batch output. Well, they'll be exactly the same to the batch output from the desktop application. The design comparison utility, we brought that forward from the previous application. So you just select your base design, you select a design to compare that to, you can filter based off of the various design components that you see in the results. And then once you hit compare, it's going to show that comparison down below. And one thing that we did a little bit different from the desktop application, you can actually select a single base design, and you can select multiple designs to compare that base design to, and those will each show up in a separate list below. Okay. Excuse me. So let's take a look at batch. So we'll go to batch mode. How many designs do we have? Do we have two? We do. These are both ready to go, I believe. So let's go to batch mode, create batch, batch test 1, webinar batch. So we expand that, we add designs, we want webinar test 2. Now if you click on this, it's actually going to take you to the design editor for that design, so make sure you click on the icon to add it. And then when you're done, you'll click Finished Adding Designs. And this batch is ready to go, so we'll run it. And you can see it's starting up there. And we'll go to the Designs page, we'll look at Running Designs, and we can see that the batch test 1, and then this is appended by the system batch analysis, is running, and we can look at the progress of the two analyses. So we'll just give this a second to complete. And you can see it ran those two designs in parallel. And there's our completed batch analysis. So you can download the results, and it's exactly what we saw on the slides. We've got our design for each design outputs and intermediate results for each design in the batch. And then we also have the batch report. Batch report is here. We just click on EOCX, and we'll save that. And this is identical to the batch summary report in the desktop application. Okay, so now I'd like to take a look at the design comparison tool. And so we'll just use webinar test as our base, and webinar 2 is our comparison. We'll run the compare, and you can see we actually have different climate data. Ever so slightly, I must have selected a different climate location. But that'll show the differences between the two designs. And this functions identically to the desktop application. You can also upload and download filter settings. You can actually see all the different filter settings here. We still have a little bit of formatting to do here, but this is 100% functional. And so you can turn these off or on and then save those settings and use them as you would like. Okay, that's design comparison, batch mode. Oh, I wanted to briefly touch on, I'm not going to run sensitivity or thickness optimization because they take a little bit longer to run. I just want to show the sensitivity combination and thickness optimization screens. So you can see right now, if I select one of these, we can actually run the sensitivity analysis. Or you can, select multiple items. And then once you run the sensitivity analysis, the sensitivity will show up in running designs. It'll say sensitivity next to it, and when it's done, it'll show up in completed designs. And then the same is true for thickness optimization. So you just select what you'd like to optimize on, and then run the thickness optimization, and it's going to show up in the designs component under running designs, and then eventually under completed designs. Excuse me. Okay, I think we're all caught up. Okay, yes, so let's spend a little bit of time looking at tenants, libraries, and workspaces. This is going to be kind of a introduction, a high-level overview of what these concepts are and how you're going to be able to utilize them to customize the process at your agency when you're working with Pavement ME Design. So tenants are just a group of users who share common access with specific privileges to the software instance. So that's just basically defining, you can think of it as being analogous to your agency, your tenant. And most agencies are just going to have one tenant. Libraries actually define the data that you want to reuse inside of your tenant. So if you have material libraries, material data, climate data, traffic data, those are all considered libraries in the system. And you'll be able to use the upload features of the system to upload those libraries to the multi-tenant web server where that information is permanently stored. And then you'll be able to use those libraries as defaults or set them up to be used as defaults in any designs that your agency uses. And that process, once it's set up, is fully automated. So that way, what we want to do is cut down on repetitive processes and mistakes when users are having to create designs. Workspaces are the data and the user interface configuration that's defined for a specific use case in your tenant. So if you've set up your, let's say your calibration factor libraries are all set up and you don't want anybody to touch them for as long as you work there, you can actually just turn off the access to the calibration factors. So it's impossible for anyone working in your tenant to change those default data. And then the user's self-explanatory, really just who gets to use your tenant, and that's going to determine, how many seats are being utilized in your subscription. Okay, so customers or agencies may have multiple tenants. That's not going to be a common case, but it is possible. A customer might have a tenant in the multi-tenant cloud, and they might have another single-tenant hosted service. That's just an example. A customer might have a user that belongs to a consulting agency tenant and to a DOT tenant. And so the tenant that you utilize, that's going to govern the workspaces and libraries that you'll have access to as a user. So if you're working as a consultant, you might be invited to a tenant for maybe Indiana, maybe for Wisconsin, and you will be, when you log into the system, you'll be able to select which tenant you want to use during that session. And that will give you access to those libraries that you set up or that the agency has set up for you for those for that particular agency. Okay, so how do you get, you're the root admin, you've signed in and you want to invite somebody to the system. So how do you do that? The root admin and any user or group designated by the root admin are going to have access to the user management page. And so from the user management page, you're going to be able to check user status to see if they're online or offline. You'll be able to edit groups and policies that are available for the users. And these are going to be things like, you know, can this user modify libraries? Can this user create workspaces? Can they edit workspaces? Can they work with subscriptions that we have? And then you can also disable account access. So if somebody leaves or a contract ends, rather than deleting the user, you can just disable their access and they won't be able to sign into your tenant anymore. And then, of course, you can also add and remove users. So what does adding a new user look like? Well, it's actually pretty simple. You'll just click that Add New User button. It'll ask you for the person's email, and then you'll hit Send Invite. And that person's going to get this email that just says, hey, you've been invited by a tenant administrator to a tenant in Pavement AMI Design. Please use the following information to register for that tenant. If the user already has a Pavement AMI Design account, they won't have to go through this process. They'll just sign in and they'll be able to see that tenant in their user management section of the application, and then they can decide, you know, when they want to use it. Okay, workspaces, very important. So workspaces define default data groups and UI configurations for all the analysis inputs. There's always a system default workspace that ships with the system. We wanted users to be able to use, create designs, run designs immediately after signing in with all of the system defaults. So we created the system default workspace. The system default workspace actually cannot be deleted. It's always available for all users to use whenever they would like. Workspaces can pair with one or more libraries, and that just means that that's just giving the tenant administrator control over you know, what users have access to what libraries, maybe in different sections. There's a lot of variability and possibilities for the way that you can manage your default data in the system. And we wanted to set it up that way so that the users, so that your agency can set up your custom workflow in the system. And we're going to get into all of those details, but we're going to do that in the next webinar because we just don't have time to go through it all today. So all users, okay, I mentioned that. The system workspace is the only workspace where you can't modify any of the defaults. That's just because it's always supposed to have the defaults that ship with the product. And then users always have access to one or more workspaces and can always set a default workspace for quick access. And I'll show some of that in the UI here in a minute. So we mentioned the associated libraries for workspace extras. Users logging into a workspace automatically get the workspace library default value data and UI configuration when creating new designs. So if you've set up a workspace, then you've associated specific library data, so specific default data with that workspace, and you've associated a set of users with that workspace or a group of users with that workspace. When a user creates a new design, they're going to get all of that automatically. They won't have to mess with any of it. And so a lot of the libraries, workspaces, and users associations and work is all stuff that you should just have to do one time or just periodically. And then your users are just able to work in the system with that default value data and customized user interface. Libraries store the default data that you want to reuse in your designs. And again, I want to emphasize that libraries are stored permanently on our multi-tenant server, or in the other deployment options, they're stored permanently on the server. That's going to be traffic, materials, calibration factors, any component in the system. There are actually two different types of libraries. There's the component libraries that I just mentioned, and then there's also material libraries. And the material libraries, we separated out because those have subsets of the different types of materials. And so we'll just take a brief look at that today. But those libraries, suffice it to say, those libraries can be paired with your workspaces and your users, and that makes them importable into your designs and provides them as default data. The third sort of library-ish component are these design templates. So it's just a special kind of library that's going to take an entire design and allows you to use it as property data for any designs that you create when you go to create a new design. And you can create the design templates from under the library's action menu under tenants. And so we'll take a brief look at that as well. Okay, so we're going to pause there and go through some of these in a little more detail. So I'm going to go to tenants, and you can see I have a PMed beta tenant set up here. And inside of the PMed beta tenant, I have a set of workspaces. So I have the system workspace, and that one's currently set as the default. You can also set it as active by default, so as the next time that I log in, I will always use the system workspace. I've created this test workspace. And inside of the test workspace, you can actually edit what libraries, are associated with the workspace. So we can see I've got a traffic library here, and I think I have a default template library associated. You can edit what users are paired with this workspace. So I've paired my main account that I'm logged in with right now. And then you can also, from this screen, edit the user interface configuration. So this is a really neat feature. This just allows you to set the visibility, the read-only nature, and the order in which you see all of the different components in the system. So, one of the main areas that people work with is structure. And so if you want these properties to be in a different order, you can just drag and drop them in any order that you want them to be in. And if you don't want people to be able to see air voids, because you should never touch air voids, you just turn it off and they'll never see it. Or if you want people to be able to see it and know what the value is, but not be able to edit it, you can set it to read only. Then once you hit the save button, that updates that in the system. And again, any component in the system can be modified this way. And just to reiterate, you can also drag the order of these pills around, so you can change the order in which they appear on the page. It's all up to the user, the agency, and they can decide how they want to interact with the system. Okay, so I'm going to head back to the workspaces page. We're just going to take a look at some of the default libraries. So I mentioned these previously. We have the test traffic one set up here, which is just, I think I changed the default AADTT to 6000 in this library. And then this one is a design template. And then I also created an asphalt test material library. I can't remember exactly what I changed in this one, but it was just a test. We'll get into the material libraries in the next webinar in more detail, and how to upload and work with these libraries in the system. Okay, so when we're inside of the library's management page, there are a couple different sort of aspects to look at here. So we can actually change things like, we can add a performance criteria library or a traffic library. Anything, we can add different material libraries. These are all just scoped views of the All Libraries page. And then down here at the bottom, of course, we have calibration. That's there. And then we also have the design template. And this just lets you, as mentioned previously, set up all the information for a particular design. And you can actually use that design when you go to create a new design. So if I create a new design here, I can say, hey, I want to use my default template library, US test. And when I create this design, it will create that design and load in all of those default values automatically. Okay, let me make sure I'm not getting ahead of myself in the presentation. I think we went over everything. Okay. Moving on to site maintenance. I know we have a lot of questions to get through, and I promise I'm going to wrap up quick here to try to get to those questions, get everything answered. So you might navigate to the website and see this page. If you see this page, usually, almost always, that means that we're updating the site with a new release. And I want to emphasize, any new release that occurs in this way is not going to change the analysis outputs. This will only be to fix bugs that are not related to the analysis outputs or to add new features. And we're going to try to do this site maintenance once every 2 weeks, so bi-monthly. And it should take about 5 minutes. So, and we actually can customize this page a little bit, so we'll tell you exactly what we're doing. And we'll tell you, hey, just check back in 5 minutes. We should be up and running again. If it is the case that you're running a design, say, over the weekend, and we're doing this update, you're running a bunch of designs, and we have to take the site down, the analysis queue system actually saves which analyses were completed and which ones were not, and we'll pick those up again automatically when the site comes back up. So you don't have to worry about resubmitting your analyses or anything like that. Okay, so we're going to take a look at some of what's coming up in Pavement ME Design in FY23. It's going to be a really exciting year. There are a lot of user-centric enhancements planned. We have 2 exciting potential research, innovation, and product improvements that we're going after that should dramatically increase the performance of the EICM and APADs. And so let's go over those now. So here's a sneak peek of what's coming up. We're going to be implementing things like custom validators, so that'll allow users to validate all the tools and all of the properties in the system. We're going to include the standard deviation of the IRI, initial value and predicted IRI, as an input to the software.
Chad, second.
Yeah.
Harold and Hari, I think you were made panelists. Can you just mute your mics, please?
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, Hari and Harold, we can hear you guys. Harold, can you mute your mic too? Thanks. Thanks, Voter. One of the requests that we had while we were going through the testing process with the technical review team was including easels in the output report. And that's to help folks who still work with easels be able to see and kind of have a confirmation number in the output. And I guess, Voter, if there's anything you want to add on that one, please do. But I think I covered it. Okay. Great. We're going to add a real-time dynamic modulus master curve plot in the UI. So as soon as you enter in the dynamic modulus information, we'll compute the curve information for you immediately and show that. That way you know if that data is good or not right away. Excuse me. We're going to include the same thing for creep compliance in real time in the UI. So when you enter your creep compliance data, we'll show a graph of master curve fit results. We have some traffic module outputs that we're going to show in the UI to give more information about what's going on with traffic. And again, this is going to be more real-time interaction in the user interface to improve the user experience. And then we also know that folks are looking to be able to further customize the reports. So we're going to be gathering some of the requirements from our users on what report customizations they might want to see, and developing some tools around that to make that possible. And then one of the big ones is user-defined identifier fields. So right now the identifier fields in all the designs are static. They've been that way for, I think, as long as the product has been in existence. We would like to kind of keep some of the base ones around or recommended ones around, and then allow users to put in their own identifier fields. And that way it helps users further customize their design process. And that hopefully should help with things in the future like, you know, if I want to filter particular library data, we can use these identifier fields to help filter that information. And then we've also, looking forward to FY24, we're looking at caching the EICM output results. We do something similar in the CAT tool, the calibration assistance tool, and this will make it so that the EICM basically, for a design that you've run but haven't changed information that's pertinent to the ICM won't have to run again. We'll cache the results. We'll just use those cached results for the rerun of the design. And then we have two pending potential repeat enhancements. The BCT web application, so that's taking the back calculation tool and updating it to a software as a service, and that'll be available through your Pavement subscription and integrated with pavementmedesign.com, so you'll be able to get to the app from there, and some more direct integration with the outputs from that tool into Pavement ME Design, sort of like what we have now. If you're familiar with that tool, being able to automatically generate a design with some of the back calculation results embedded within it. And then the second major enhancement is a complete refactoring of the Julia algorithm for performance improvements. So we've seen some of the results of just the initial investigation into that already that we're going to release with version 3, and we're excited to finally be able to dig into some of these old analysis executables and, you know, ensuring that the results remain the same across all the different design strategy types, but really improving the speed at which they run. Okay, so summary and takeaways. This is just going to be a rehash of everything we've gone over. So for version 3, we've got the 151 integration. We've got updated calibration for rigid designs compatible with the Mera climatic dataset. This is a SaaS web application with tenants, libraries, and workspaces. And both versions have the updated APATS performance improvement of 4x for faster flexible design runs. And just as a recap, V3 offers all the capabilities of the desktop application as a web service, and it provides a faster, easier to use experience for agencies. There's no installation required. You can create and manage your libraries locally or in the cloud, and it's going to give you more performant server-based analysis runs. And as this system takes hold and as it gets more use, we're going to be looking into moving away from what we have now as potentially as a monolithic server and getting that analysis spun off onto its own service. We've got some investigation to do there, some experimentation to see exactly how that's going to work, but that's something we're looking forward to as well to make you know, design and analysis runs even faster and easier for the users. So in the webinar, we went over how to register your SaaS PMED account, how to add and manage the users for your agency, how to create, upload, edit, and work with designs and the various components in the designs, including your material data, your structure, your traffic, your climate, and so on, all the different components. How to run, view the progress, and download the results of a design run. We looked at how we save and manage design data, and we introduced the concepts of tenants, libraries, and workspaces, and how your agency will be able to use those in the future to simplify your design process. And we introduced concepts for utilizing libraries and workspaces to manage your agency library data. We also reviewed a little bit the update process for the Pavement ME Design SaaS server and scheduled maintenance procedures, and we discussed how multiple versions in the system, we did not discuss this yet, we do need to discuss how multiple versions in the system are going to be managed. So this is probably on one of my slides that I didn't read. The as we come out with analysis changing designs, which should be about every 5 years now, we'll be integrating new NCHRP products into the software, and that's in accordance with the local calibration guide. The system, we're going to make available in the system the previous version, in some cases versions, of the application. And we're going to do that in a very simple way. We're going to subdomain the application. So if you're needing to still work with V3 and V4 is out, you'll do v3.pavementmedesign.com, and that will take you to the version 3 analysis and user interface. And the main website, pavementmedesign.com, will always have the latest release available. And that's we just want to make sure that agencies are still able to, you know, that they have time to move from one calibration to the next based off of whatever integrations or enhancements are done on the analysis. Okay. So with that, I'm going to open up poll questions 3, 4, and 5. They're just going to be listed as 1, 2, 3 on here, I think. I'm going to have this poll open for 2 minutes. So that should be open now. Okay, we got about 1 minute left. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll out. Okay, thank you everybody for participating in the poll questions. And with that, we're ready to move on to the question and answer session. So I guess what I'll do is I'll switch over now to the questions and answers. There's one question, is it possible to purchase a cheaper license that only gives you the hourly climate data? I probably need some clarification on the question. I do know that there is not a cheaper license available.
Chad, some of these have been answered.
Okay. I'll go through them one at a time and make sure everybody hears the question and the answer, and I'll just read the answer if it's there. We had a question on the subscription seats. Are the seats able to, I think, be accessed simultaneously, be run simultaneously? The answer is yes, and Brendan answered that one there. So if a subscription has 9 seats, at most 9 unique sessions can be concurrent. And that was followed up with, so does that mean that each seat can only be run on either the online platform or the desktop software? The answer to that is no. Those are separate and distinct. The purpose of ASHO providing the desktop application with your subscription purchase is so that you're able to confirm and still work with the legacy software while also getting familiar with and utilizing the web application. So those seats will be distinct. So they're just extra seats. And then Harold would like me to ask the question, is entering climate data for international climate the same as for the United States? The answer is yes. For version 3, everything's on the Merit Climatic data set, and so the operation for entering international climate data is identical to the United States. We had a question, if climate files are uploaded, are those climate files stored? They're not stored. So the climate file when it gets uploaded gets basically integrated into the design file, and the design files themselves aren't stored. However, you can store climate library data. So if you do want to store specialized climate data, maybe that your agency has, you can certainly store that climate data as libraries in the system, and those are saved on the multi-tenant server permanently. We had a question on sunrise and sunset columns being used in the pavement temperature models, and voter answered that sunrise and sunset values are not new to the software. They're currently available in the DGPX input file. The only new feature is that the values are actually shown in the application. Okay, the next question is, did the new charts enhancement overwrite the resolution issue for the desktop application? I want to say yes. I'm not 100% sure on the exact nature of the question, but I would say yes to that.
Yeah, and Chad, this was a desktop resolution issue with the Telerik plot generation.
The Telerik reports. Yeah, those problems are gone. Yeah. With our move to OpenXML, there won't be any shrinkage of those charts in your outputs. So if you do see that, let us know, because you shouldn't. We had a question, is the back calculation tool web-based? Not yet, which is the correct answer. It is planned for next fiscal year. So we actually have to start working on that starting in July. So it's coming quickly. I don't anticipate that's not just on the back, a note on the back calculation tool. That should not take us the entire fiscal year to complete, somewhere between 3 and 5 months. So about halfway through the fiscal year, be looking for the back calculation tool web application. Just depends on issues we have with the multi-tenant web app, and just what the priorities are. We had a question, how many analyses can be launched simultaneously in batch mode? And just to clarify, you can add as many designs as you want to your batch. You can add 100, you can add 1,000, as many as you'd like. The server hard caps the analysis runs right now at 5. So the 5 designs can run concurrently on the web application. And that's just what our stress testing sort of showed. We had multiple users on. We would run 5 designs, and for all of those users, there was no noticeable slowdown in the interactions in the user interface. If it becomes necessary, over time, over the next few months, we're going to be looking at server load. If it becomes necessary to update the server, we have a process in place that can kind of do that automatically. That'll give us more processing power, potentially more RAM to work with, in which case we can run more analyses at a time. We also have a load balancer, so we could spin up a second monolith. There are some cost issues there, and also issues associated with where user data or agency data is actually being stored because we have a monolith. So we would need to resolve some of those issues if we started running into some performance issues. You know, if people are having to wait too long for their designs to finish, that's obviously a problem. So we do have some contingencies in place to handle that. And then, yeah, Brendan answered that question. There's not a limit on the size of batch you can start, but the analysis queue system will process them per their priority and the availability on the server. The next question is, will former DGPX files be fully compatible with the web version? And William answered that, yes, the DGPX files from the previous versions can be loaded by the web version. Another question, will the video recording of this presentation be available? The answer to that is yes. We'll send out an email to everybody that's on the listserv at me-design.com. And that is where the webinar will be posted. The next question is, are the pavement response output stress strain report, is that available in version 3? Probably let Voter answer this. My answer is no, but that is something, this is from Mesba. Mesba, if you want to send an email for, I'm pretty sure Voter knows exactly. Voter, go ahead. I see you unmuted there.
I don't, where is this question? Was it sent to you in chat?
It was sent in QA. Must have just dodged it.
Sent privately? I don't know. Because I don't see that one, but I mean the structural response that's currently in the desktop application, that'll still be there.
Okay. Thank you, Voter. We had another question regarding whether you can adjust the coefficients for local calibration runs. The answer is definitely yes. And Voter seconds that. Next question, are the current desktop license holders going to have concurrent access to both desktop and web-based versions? Great question. The answer is yes. So again, if you have, let's say you have a 1-seat subscription, that's going to give you 1 seat on the web application, and you can also request the desktop application. You'll have 1 seat available for that as well. And that seat will either be a workstation or site license based off of your current or previous purchases. We have somebody requesting a copy of the presentation. That will also be made available on the website. And we'll send out the link for it to everybody on the listserv, to everybody that's attended today. And Voter seconds that. Another question, are you looking into expanding the analysis capacity depending on demand? Touched on this before. The answer is yes. If it becomes obvious that normal use of the application requires more capacity, we're in a position to quickly move to that. I want to stress that it's the applications for practical design use at the agencies. So if you're trying to run thousands of designs to do a calibration in the system, you can do that, but that is not that's something that we would point you toward the CAT for, the calibration assistance tool. That's really why that was created, and that's really how it should be used. And the CAT will be updated very early to be in FY23 to be compatible with version 3. So you'll be able to, prepare your calibration data, upload your designs, perform validation, calibrate, and then decide if you need to do calibration and verification through the CAT. So my answer to that really is, if you're looking to do calibration runs, use the calibration assistance tool. But if you are just doing a lot of runs for your agency, the system can certainly handle that currently. Another thing that I just want to note on that, the server is much faster and more powerful than your average workstation computer, and it churns through the designs. Voter, how much faster were we getting through the designs on the production server, would you say, on average?
Maybe a couple minutes, depending on how long. I mean, a 40-year design probably was about 3/4
right
of the time. I mean, it's noticeable.
Yeah, and so the server is going to churn through the designs faster, just because it's got more power. Currently, batch mode does not allow cases with warnings. These cases must be run manually. Will this change with the web version? Angel, I'll need to get back to you on that one. That is not a test case that I have run.
That sounds like a bug, Chad. I'm seeing if the team can replicate it.
Okay, so we'll take a look at that, Angel, and I'll get back to you separately. I would say that batch mode should allow that to occur. So we'll look into that and make that update as necessary. The next question is, does 3.0 go live on July 1st? The answer is it does. July 1st is go live day. And I didn't elaborate on this. On the 27th, on Monday, we're going to process all of the AASHTO purchases in our system. So if you've purchased, really if you've purchased any of the license or subscriptions for Pavement ME Design in the system, you're going to get those two emails. You're going to get your web application email and the desktop application email. And then, after that, you'll have access to the system. And we'll process, we should be able to get through processing all of those on the 27th. Quick follow-up, the recording of the webinar will be available. Yes, we will make that available. Great question here. Have we used NAR or MERA for the rigid calibration for version 3.0? We have used the MERA climatic dataset. So version 3.0 will exclusively use the MERA climatic dataset by default, and then you can always upload custom climate to the system. We had a question from regarding the back calculation model. Is it going to be incorporated, and is it developed in-house? The back calculation tool was created through AASHTO, so we're the developers and maintainers of the system. AASHTO owns that software. It was developed by AASHTO, and it's going to be incorporated into the system most likely here early in the first half of FY23.
Yeah, Chad, on the back calculation, just as a reminder, AASHTO basically adopted the EverCalc that was developed at Washington State.
Correct. Thank you, Harold. And it looks like our last question, so we're doing pretty good on time here. Does the web-based version have any minimum requirements for computer configurations or systems, for instance, memory, space, etc.? We're not publishing any relatively modern computer should be able to run the application. It's all run on the server, so as long as your computer can, open up your web browser. Oh, this actually reminds me, and this is a good point. I'm glad you asked this. Because of some of the features that our users wanted to see in the system, we are only compatible with the Chrome and Edge browsers, and those are recommended for use. So Firefox and Safari are not recommended for use. But no, there's no recommended minimum system specs for the web application. Okay, so will Apple Chrome work, Mark? Good question. We haven't tested Apple Chrome. It should work, although I was working with a user yesterday who was working with the system on their tablet using Apple Chrome, and they were having problems on the structure page. So it should work, and our team will consider it a bug if it does not work, because it needs to be compatible with the Chrome deployment. So if you're using it on Apple Chrome, let me know if you run into issues there. So we do have some time here, so I'll leave the Q&A session open. I'm going to go through questions that were asked in the chat box. I'm going to start at the bottom, work my way up. So we had somebody ask to explain the significance of a batch run. If they upload 100 files directly, or if they upload 100 files via batch, are both capped at 5, or will the remaining be queued, or did they miss something? So there's no real limit to the number of files that you work with. Those are all stored on the server. We have plenty of RAM on the server to handle processing batch files. Nothing's capped at 5 or anything like that. What the cap that we mentioned at 5 was the number of simultaneous analyses that are being run on the server. So those are analyses that are running in parallel. So when you run batch mode, let's say you have 100 projects in your batch and you run it, it's going to take the first 5 and start running them all simultaneously. And then as it finishes those, it's going to continue to add analyses from the analysis queue, and it'll always cap that out at 5. There is a question on here about dynamic modulus value results. This isn't really related to the webinar presentation today, but feel free to post that into the Q&A box, and that will we'll try to get that answered.
Chad, can you show the Q&A box
Yeah.
item that was in the very beginning of the presentation?
The very beginning. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, on the slides.
Yeah, let me go back to that. So to get to that Q&A box, go all the way back to the beginning here. You just click that Q&A box right there. I'll leave that up. Another question is the 5 analyses that I mentioned per tenant or per the whole server? And the answer, Mark, is it's per the whole server. But with most designs completing in 8 minutes, the amount of time that you're having to wait for like a 25-year design, you shouldn't see a significant delay in your design runs. If you are having to wait a long time, what you consider a long time for your designs to complete, please email pavementmedesign@ara.com. Let us know, what you're trying to do, what your experience was, and we're going to be compiling that information along with analytics from the server and determining, if we need to increase the amount of basically power that server has. But yeah, it's 5 total for the whole server. There's another question in the chat. With changing climate, are we expected to see changes or effects on climate models? I'll probably let Voter answer that one.
The current application, basically the first version of the web application, is identical to the desktop. Any changes to models within the software will have to go through the task force review plus manual practice updates and so on. So the software follows what the manual practice includes. And Harold can probably expand on that too.
Yeah, I think the question that if I read this correctly, with changing climate, because climate's going to change, getting warmer, are we expected to see any changes or effects on the climate model? And MIRA and all the climate models are based on historical data. So it will not consider warming effects or any kind of climate changes, systematic climate changes into the future. But some agencies have hired climatologists to generate climate data sets to consider or be able to account for changes in the climate into the future, not historically. So it's a historical database.
Thanks, Harold. We had another question. Can the grace period for last year's license be extended to give more time to get 3.0 up and running? It can be a pain with IS to renew license on the desktop application. I think agencies have a month grace period, so it goes all the way to August 1st. If you need more time than that, I would encourage you to contact myself or AASHTO, and we can work with you directly.
Chad, if an agency wanted to use version 2.6, the latest desktop version now, would they be able to use it next fiscal year?
Absolutely, yeah. The sunset plan for the desktop application is 5 years, so we will support the previous versions of the application as we've done in the past, and any updates to version 2.6, which will be version 2.6.2, version 2.6.3, and so on, over the next 5 years. Okay, give me 1 second. I'm going to scroll up in the chat. Is it possible to import traffic data from way in motion devices? Probably a question for Voter or Harold. I guess I'll say this.
Actual load spectra data can be, but not directly from way in motion.
Correct. So all the
pre-processed, yeah.
Right. All of the previous functionality for managing traffic data exists in the web application. So if it existed in the desktop application, it will exist in the web application. I don't know the details for importing directly from way in motion outputs, but if that's a feature that's important to your agency, please send us an email and we'll get that, considered and looked at.
Yeah, just to clarify, way in motion data does include other traffic data, not just actual weight, but I would not suggest that an agency import traffic data from raw way in motion data. That data usually needs to be processed, so it's not a direct transfer, or it should not be a direct transfer.
Chad, you're muted if you were talking.
Yeah.
I totally was. Sorry about that. So we had a question on special traffic. Does V3 offer any option including heavy vehicle categories that are not covered within the existing vehicle class categories? So you can. The only one that I'm aware of is the use of special traffic from the legacy application, and that will load in the special traffic component that should be identical to what we have in the desktop application.
Yeah, just to clarify, Chad, that when you're using special traffic, that is traffic by itself, and it's not in the regular traffic main or traffic application.
Right. Okay. I'm just checking through the comments, make sure we got everything. I guess if you have a question still in the chat that you'd like me to answer that I have not yet answered, can you copy and paste that into the Q&A box now? Because searching through all these is there's a lot in here that and a lot of them have already been copied over. Let me make sure. We had a question here. Can you clarify the subscription portion? It is unclear if we're going to have just one user. Oh, it is unclear if we are going to have just one user or multiple. With a single user account, will I be able to log in from any computer, or will it be a specific desktop? So yeah, as we discussed in the webinar, when you purchase the subscription, ASHO is giving you access to both the web application and an equivalent number of seats in the desktop application, and that just comes with your purchase. You can access the web application from any machine because it's just a website that you go to. The desktop application is going to function identically to how it has in the past, where if you install it, once you install it on a machine, you'll need to register the license on that machine, and then any number of users can utilize that machine to run the software. Okay, let me go through these. We had a question on what the backbone of the processor is. From a governing equation point of view, does it solve a nonlinear elasticity equation? I'm not sure. This sounds like an analysis-specific question. We'll probably have to come back to that one. This was sent to me privately, voter, so I'll save it and send it to you. Another question, do processor run threads in a parallel manner or sequential? It's going to run them in parallel. Another question, is there any change or update to the academic version? Great question. What I've shown here today is the academic version. So folks who are using the educational license, you'll have access to this system. The same strictures and limitations that existed in the desktop application have been implemented here. Yeah, I think I think that answers that question. The academic version of the application is Pavement ME Design version 3.0. You can use it, and we will be processing the educational subscriptions on the 27th. Just going through these, make sure we got them all. There's another question about cloud storage. Is the software, is it connected to cloud storages like S3 on AWS or Google? We do have some integrations. They're very minimal. There are several reasons why we're not storing the user data, the design data in S3. A lot of it just has to do with the sheer volume of data that people want to store over time. And so we currently are not planning to store the design data in the cloud. Again, that's distinct from the library and workspace configuration data. All of that is saved on the multi-tenant server. And we have our standard backup procedures to ensure that that data is always available. And in the event, of an issue, we can recover it. We had a question: will there be an additional cost to the web application, or will it be part of the desktop license? We currently have one desktop license, so are they going to be able to access the web application? So there was a little bit of a blip early on the ASHO store page with the subscription versus the desktop license, And I've discussed that with Ryan Fragapane, the AASHTO PM, and anybody who's purchased the individual license, we're just going to go ahead and give you the equivalent access to the subscription service because they're the same price. So you'll have access to both, even if you've just purchased the desktop license. But again, there's no cost difference. And following that, do I need to purchase both the desktop and the online version? Nope. Just as I said, it'll just be one purchase through AASHTO. And I think that's everything. Let me double check. Those are all the questions. We've gotten through them all. So with that, let me head back to my presentation. We just have a couple more slides to wrap up. So just a couple of announcements. In FY23, we have another webinar series. We're going to have 2 webinars coming up real fast. We're going to have a second webinar with the version 3 application. We're going to take a deep dive into tenants, libraries, and workspaces. We'll be announcing that date very soon. And we're going to have a second webinar on the integration of the NCHRP 151 product and recalibration of the rigid pavement transfer functions. And we'll be announcing that date soon as well. With that, I'm going to hand it back over to Clark to take us out.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank everyone for attending. I've been looking at the attendance sheet, and it looks like we were upwards of 280 attendees, so that's great attendance, so thank you to everyone. And what we have here is just some contact points for additional questions or comments. The first 2 there are contacts for the task force. Ryan Fragapane with AASHTOware is our project manager, and you see his email and phone number. And my email, Clark Morrison at NCDOT, is there as well. And again, any questions or comments are welcome. You see the ME Design Resource website, www.me-design.com. That's where the recorded versions of this webinar and all our previous webinars and future webinars, for that matter, will be posted. There's also additional information at that site. So if you haven't visited there, you should go take a look. There is the Pavement ME Design Users Group, and I'd encourage you to participate in that. The contact for that is Jennifer Albert with FHWA, and her email address is on the screen. And for assistance with actually using the software, the help desk is the preferred point of contact. You can see that you can email pavementmedesign@ara.com, or you see the phone number 217-356-4500. Either of those will get you help with actually using the software. And you see email addresses for the ARA staff that are active in the project: Chad, Booter, and Harold, as well as the help desk phone number again. So with that, thanks to everyone for attending, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone. And Clark, I just wanted to tag on at the very end here. Thanks so much to our excellent technical review team members. We could not have gotten this to the state that it's in without them, and we really appreciate their time and their dedication to making this product better. I just wanted to throw that out there as well. So
absolutely, I second that comment as well.
All right, thank you, everybody.